Okay, I'm back in the car now, and I decided to make a video real quick about what happened to Jeremy. There's been a lot of confusion on the internet, and it's understandable. You know, stories get mixed up a little bit, or only a piece is heard, and so I just want to clear that up. Jeremy, when he passed away, was actually pretty healthy. He had seen a cardiologist on November 7th as a pre-op for his upcoming hip surgery, and the cardiologist said that his heart was in top-notch condition, and it was perfect. It was really, really good. I mean, for 400 pounds, his heart was probably just as good as mine was. And he had other tests done, and Jeremy had a urinary tract infection for over a month, about 6 weeks, and he just couldn't get rid of it. He was taking Cipro and all these other antibiotics by mouth, and you know, it just wasn't helping. So 2 days before he passed away, he was taken to the hospital to get an IV for medication, and he was sent right back home. He had the IV for I think they kept him for about 6 hours in the hospital to make sure he didn't have any adverse reaction to it, and he was fine. So they sent him back home for us to do, and so he was getting the antibiotic. And a week before he passed, he went to the hospital because he was vomiting blood. A lot of blood, like 2 pints of blood, pure blood. And they said that was because of the Excedrin that he was taking, because he had very bad migraines for the last month and a half. And it all kind of comes together in the end, really. Jeremy and I came home from work. I worked all day that day, of course, my last day with him. And I came home, and we were eating chicken for dinner, and he wasn't really hungry. He took 2 bites, and he said, "No, I'm not hungry." And I spent an hour on the phone with my mom. So basically, our last day together, I hardly spent with him, and it really, really hurts. And I was on the phone with my mom, and then I got off because Wizard of Oz was coming on television. And Wizard of Oz happens to be a very good movie for us, because it's special to us. Because when Jeremy was in the hospital to get his gastric bypass surgery, we were watching it in the hospital room together the day before surgery, and he almost died. So we always considered that to be a special movie because it could have been our last movie together. And we watched Wizard of Oz, and he fell asleep for an hour or two. When he woke up, his face was all blue, and he had trouble breathing, and I could see all the blue veins in his face, and he just had trouble breathing. And so I told him to breathe, and he was starting to breathe, and I said, "Are you okay? Do you want me to call the doctor?" And he said, No, I'm fine. And he was kind of talking out of his head, which was just lack of oxygen. He wasn't really understanding me too much. After about 10 minutes of that, I decided to go ahead and call the nurse because he wasn't improving any. So I called the nurse, and she said, "Call 911 because it sounds serious." So I did that. And because Jeremy had been in so many medical situations and emergencies throughout our relationship, I know how to be calm. And we called 911. And during that time, Jeremy wasn't getting any better either. His breathing was getting worse. Every time I told him to breathe in, he'd breathe out. And his body was freezing, but he was sweating profusely. His eyes were glossed over. He said things were blurry. And I only got a few things out of him that made sense. I asked him, "Do you have chest pain?" He said no. I asked him, "What medicine have you taken?" He pointed to 2 bottles. And I said, "How much?" And he said what it says. And they were just decongestants. And I said, "Okay." And I just laid across him, trying to help him breathe. And it took the ambulance a half hour to get there. And I'm sorry. I was helping him to breathe and everything, and he wasn't doing well with it. He didn't quite understand me. And when the ambulance finally got there, they finally put him on the gurney. And as they were taking him down our driveway, which is a steep slope, it freaked him out. He got really, really scared. And as we were taking him down, like he was going to fall off the gurney, which has never happened before because you're strapped in really tight. And they were putting him into the ambulance. And as they did that, as soon as they put the gurney into the ambulance, his head went to the side and he died. I saw him die. And we didn't get an autopsy done. And it really kind of hurts not knowing exactly what it was. They said cardiac arrest. But cardiac arrest could be the end result. It could have been something else, and his heart stopped as a result of that something else. Was it the urinary tract infection? Was it a blood clot? Because, you know, being heavy, you're at high risk for blood clot. I mean, did the migraine have anything to do with it? You know, was it the antibiotics? Was it medications that were mixed because he was on so many? I don't know. There's a lot of things that it really could be, and, you know, I beat myself up every day just trying to think, what was it, you know? Not knowing hurts like hell. And, you know, the last 2 or 3 things that he said to me was, Roberta, don't leave me. Because I get sick riding in the ambulance. I get motion sickness. And I always drive the car. I always follow the ambulance. And I said, okay. So I got in the ambulance with him. And he said, the last thing I remember him saying is, I don't understand what's happening to me. And that really hurts, you know. They worked on him in the ambulance, shoving tubes down his throat and doing CPR for about 15 minutes, called in a second squad, took him to the hospital finally, and worked on him for another half hour, and then pronounced him dead. His death certificate says 3:35. He died about 3. Because he died when he got in that ambulance. I know he did. And I don't know, I think maybe going down that driveway, because he wasn't thinking right. Maybe he thought he was falling off a cliff. I mean, we don't really know what he saw or how he felt. And maybe that jumped his heart or something, you know? Like, his body couldn't handle it. And it's really hard to talk about, but I've had to explain this so many times that it's almost like reading a script in a way, to just repeat the story. So, what really got me the other day is I had to go through my camera to find a photo. And I have a photo of Jeremy 15 minutes before he died, and he's all blue. And he's looking straight at me. And the reason why I took that photo is because Jeremy always got out of it. Every single time that he had a medical emergency that they said he was going to die, he always came out of it. Always. And I always took pictures. I recorded everything he's ever been through. And I said, Jeremy, I'm going to take your photo so I can show you later just how blue you are. You know? Because I knew he would be fine. He'd go to the hospital, come home the next day or whatever, and you know, we'd look back at it and just add it to the scrapbook of things that happened to him. And I have this photo, and it's like, I want to delete it because it's so painful to look at. Then again, I want to keep it because it's my last photo of him. And it just really, really hurts to look at it, but I can't give it up yet. And, I didn't even, it didn't really even hit me, you know. The second week after he died was worse than the first. And my worst days was, this last Sunday marked the 4 weeks. And on Wednesday marked 1 month. And I cried all day. I always told him I could never live one day without him, and here I am at over a month, and it's so hard to believe that I've gotten through that, but without him, you know, it's not much of a life. So I gotta make it the best one I can for both of us. But I just wanted everybody to know what happened. That's what happened to him, and